Last week was the Boogie Man Jam 84, and we witnessed the victory of the Boogie Woogie Man himself, Jimmy Valiant, over Paul Jones's assassins, leading to assassin number 2 being unmasked. This week, we deal with the fallout of Valiant's win. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself. It is March 24th, 1984. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, last week was the Boogie Man Jam 84, and it saw the new NWA World Tag Team Champions, Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood, who is also the new NWA Television Champion, face off against the former champions, Don Kernodle and Ivan Koloff, in a non-title match. Dirty Dick Slater successfully defended his NWA United States Heavyweight Championship against longtime rival Greg the Hammer Valentine in a steel cage, and like I mentioned, that Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant unmasked assassin number 2. While over in the World Wrestling Federation, we saw Rowdy Roddy Piper upset quite a massive man in Andre the Giant, and we also learned that Bob Backlund would be returning to wrestling action this week. This week we're going to tune into the NWA's Worldwide Wrestling program down in the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area first, because I don't know about you, but I'm dying to know what's going to happen there this week. To start things off, Johnny Weaver and Don Kernodle are on commentary this week, and they bring us a match between the Great Kabuki, accompanied by his manager Gary Hart, against Tim Horner. Kernodle does a great job of remaining professional while on commentary, and he's quick to point out the fact that while the match may start off well enough for Tim Horner, it quickly falls apart for the man following a devastating kick to the face by the Great Kabuki. A second and a third kick are enough to get the Great Kabuki the 1-2-3. In the next match, we get to see Assassin number 1, who's accompanied by his manager, Paul Jones, take on Vinnie Valentino. Unlike his partner, Assassin number 2, Assassin number 1 was forcefully moved to the backstage area during the Boogie Man Jam and made to watch the match unfold against Jimmy Valiant from the backstage area. So, he's more rested up and ready to compete this week. When the match does begin, Vinnie Valentino wastes little time sending the rotund assassin outside of the ring, followed shortly thereafter by a near fall. I take back what I said. Assassin number 1 needs to really get his act here together. Ringside, Paul Jones is flipping a lid as Vinnie Valentino continues to outperform Assassin number 1 in every single way, scoring several more near falls. Eventually, Mr. Jones realizes that his client needs a little bit more coaching, so he calls him over. At ringside, with his manager, Assassin number 1 is slid a metal plate by Jones, who he slides into his mask. Moments later, Vinnie Valentino is out cold following a headbutt from Assassin number 1. Victory. Taking a break from commentary and leaving Johnny Weaver to do the job himself, Don Kernodle competes in tag team action next with his partner, the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff, taking on the team of Gene Ligon and Brickhouse Brown. Gary Hart is not in a good mood, and as the match gets going, he just simply stares us, the audience, down, and I can't really blame him for being in such a foul mood. The NWA is out of control lately, and the fans just simply cheer it on. Disgusting. Ligon gets isolated early on, but eventually does manage to get his tag team partner Brickhouse Brown tagged in, who continues to impress on a weekly basis. Unfortunately for Brown, this isn't singles competition, and the superior teamwork of Koloff and Kernodle are enough to keep them in control of the match. A clothesline from Kernodle is enough to send Ligon down for the pin. Backstage, Johnny Weaver has Paul Jones himself, along with both of his clients, the Assassins, for a quick word. Jones says that while Jimmy Valiant may have hurt their pride deeply, the war is far from over. Assassin number 1 pipes in and says that while Jimmy Valiant may have been victorious at the Boogie Man Jam, the game has changed. No longer are the Assassins looking to just simply beat on and hurt the Boogie Woogie Maniac. No, now they're simply looking to eliminate him from the sport of professional wrestling for good. Yes! Yes! Oh yeah, here we go. A good friend of mine, Dirty Dick Slater, comes out looking absolutely fly with those shades. Slater tells Weaver that when he gets into the ring with Junkyard Dog soon, People from all over the world are going to be tuning in to watch it. And I know I am going to be one of them. The Dirty One then says that if somehow, by a miracle, the Junkyard Dog comes out on top in their upcoming confrontation, the Dirty One will have a 2x4 waiting for him. You know what? Sometimes a dog just needs to be put down. Speaking of Jimmy Valiant, he and Junkyard Dog are in tag team action next, but you could hardly call it a competition. Gary Royal and Barry Orton lose fast following JYD's thump. Even though it's water under the bridge, according to Jay Youngblood, he and his brother Mark have an opportunity to get a semblance of revenge against the Brisco brothers, Jack and Jerry, next. You know those Briscos, they're clever, and they don't care about wins and losses. They're just here to hurt people, and that's what they set out to do tonight with Mark, as they send him flying over the top rope. This, of course, leads to a disqualifications, as if the Briscos care. The beatdown is on. Both Jack and Jerry do as much damage as they can to Mark Youngblood before they leave the ring, and I think I have just found my new favorite tag team. Jay is furious, and he takes his anger out on his brother by yanking him to his feet by the hair. Nobody likes Mark Youngblood. Brian Addias, a relative newcomer to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area, takes on Allie in one-on-one competition up next. The match is actually quite evenly matched, and it sees Allie almost come out on top a couple of times. How many times have you heard me say that before? Brian Addias does get a lucky win following a small package on Allie, and all I have to say to the newcomer is that if you expect to survive and succeed in the Mid-Atlantic wrestling area, you're going to have to do better than that. Another of Paul Jones' proteges, this time Tully Blanchard, takes on Brett with 2 T's Hart in the next match. Week by week, Blanchard continues to elevate his game in the mind games department, often going to the ropes or even going outside of the ring to keep Bret Hart away from him. Frustrated, Hart manages to get caught in one of many of the holds Tully Blanchard employs, and just when it seems that when Hart might either reverse the move or gain a temporary upper hand, Blanchard repeats his mind games. Bret finally does manage to get a hold of Tully Blanchard and throws him over the top rope. Now, if you remember the previous match with the Brisco brothers, when they did this to the Youngbloods, they were immediately disqualified. Well, here we go again with that NWA referee favoritism. The match is allowed to continue, and this leads to protests from Tully Blanchard, Paul Jones, and Tyler Vance. This referee should be fined and suspended. While normally a decent wrestler and showing much brilliance within the ring itself, Bret Hart just simply is not in the same league as Tully Blanchard. Blanchard finally does manage to put Hart away following his catapult suplex onto the mat. To wrap things up in the NWA this week, Johnny Weaver has another winner from the recent Boogie Man Jam 84, Rufus R. Jones, and he is available for an interview.
Everybody knows he's everybody's friend.
He ain't my friend. Rufus states that he cannot get the big cat Ernie Ladd off of his mind. And I say that's a good thing, considering that Jones now owes Ernie Ladd $1,000. The circus gets bigger, as Rufus R. Jones is now joined by the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant, as well as Junkyard Dog. Jimmy Valiant asks JYD what he thinks of certain people, and in response to the question, the Junkyard Dog simply howls? This is not normal human behavior. The certain people that Valiant was referring to are Adrian Street and Miss Linda, a husband and wife combination that are competing elsewhere in the NWA at the moment. Both Valiant and JYD then proceed to mock the couple's appearance and go on to say that they are going to finish them. Look, fellas, no offense, but if you're going to mock somebody's appearance, you got to make sure that you yourself aren't ugly first. Now, on to WWF Championship Wrestling. Tony Russo and the WWF Intercontinental Champion Tito Santana are competing first off in a non-title match, while the team of Vince McMahon and Gene Okerlund are calling commentary. Santana manages to stay on top of Russo for most of the match, but to his credit, Russo never gives up, and he fights to the very end. The very end being Tito Santana's flying forearm. Johnny Ringo has the unfortunate task of taking on Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff in singles competition next. The crowd gets on both Paul Orndorff and his manager Roddy Piper's case by pelting them with chants of Paula directed at Mr. Wonderful and just simply pelting Piper with trash.
Paula! Paula!
Surprisingly, it's Piper that remains calm and collected, going so far as to ease his client's concerns and calm him down before the match can get truly underway. When the match gets going, Mr. Wonderful is all over his opponent. Ringo gets thrown to the floor like the trash that was earlier thrown at Roddy Piper. Once Johnny makes his way back into the ring, a wicked clothesline greets him. Orndorff does initially struggle to lift the heft of Ringo into his signature piledriver, but eventually does succeed and delivers it with venom. What amazing strength! For the second week in a row now, Vince McMahon rips off Tyler Vance Rance with his WWF update. However, since Vince McMahon is heavily involved in the World Wrestling Federation and I'm watching 39 years in the future, maybe he can answer a question for me that's been on my mind. Where the hell is WWF World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan? We're shown a brief clip of when Hogan won the championship from the Iron Sheik back on January 23rd, and then also Vince McMahon tells us how awesome the Hulkster is and how much the fans love him. But the champion's whereabouts remain a mystery. Ron Shaw and Sergeant Slaughter go to battle next, and while the sergeant makes his way to the ring, he hands a kid at ringside the American flag. If I were that kid, I'd be handing that flag right back. Hand me the maple leaf, then we'll talk. The Marine offers his hand over to Ron Shaw in a gesture of good sportsmanship, but Ron Shaw hesitates, and he's right to do so, as Sergeant Slaughter kicks Shaw in the midsection to gain a cheap advantage as the match starts. What a coward this guy is. Unfortunately, Ron Shaw is never truly able to recover from this before Sergeant Slaughter puts him away following the Cobra Clutch. Another non-title match is next, seeing Charlie Fulton and Israel Matia take on the WWF World Tag Team Champions Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas. What a weird looking kid. I bet he'll amount to nothing. Israel Matia tries to show off his physique and muscular stature to the WWF World Tag Team Champions, and it's just embarrassing. It's like comparing a melted tub of ice cream that's been sitting outside of the freezer for 2 months to Michelangelo's David. The match itself is short and sweet, which culminates in Matia taking the L for his team following a military press and splash from Tony Atlas. This week's Piper's Pit is a little bit more civilized than it has been in the past few weeks. The guests this week are the Iron Sheik and his manager, Ayatollah Blassie. Roddy Piper is absolutely ecstatic to have these guests here, and first of all, he apologizes to the Iron Sheik for the way that the American people have treated him recently. This horrible behavior is exemplified as when the Iron Sheik begins to try to speak, the crowd does their absolute best to drown him out with those dumb USA, USA chants.
Pleasure to Ayatollah Blassie, be my manager, and I leave it to Mr. Blassie to...
Since the conversation is being hijacked by the rude American fans, Ayatollah Blassie, Roddy Piper, and the Iron Sheik say screw it. The Iron Sheik offers to take Roddy Piper shopping, saying that the Scotsman can choose any car that he wants to buy and the Sheik will pay for it.
Ha! We'd love to make you happy. One Rolls Royce coming up.
You see, Americans, no one cares about your dumb chants. You can chant USA, USA all you want. Where's your Rolls Royce? Dr. D. David Schultz takes on Steve Lombardi next, and the crowd continues to be disruptive as they begin to chant Hogan, Hogan. Normally the crowd is full of idiots, and while that might be true tonight, I too want to know where the World Heavyweight Champion is. The Doctor absolutely dissects Lombardi, securing the win following a diving elbow from the second rope. Last week, Bob Backlund returned to the World Wrestling Federation and claimed that he would be returning to in-ring action this week. Well, it's been a week since the Boy Scout made that statement, and so here we go. Bob Backlund takes on Tiger Chung Lee, and despite this being his first match since January, he demonstrates his regular skill of scientific wrestling. The beginning of the match sees the pair go back and forth with some chain wrestling, and I'm quite impressed considering I've never seen this from Tiger Chung Lee before. Backlund manages to get out of a pin from his opponent following an impressive looking bridge, and then gets the backslide pin to secure the victory. To show that he's fully back in force, Bob Backlund celebrates by doing some push-ups in the middle of the ring, and this is followed by the kids from last week returning to the ring and celebrating with their coach. It's so cute that it makes me sick. The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling sees Victor Mercado take on Iron Mike Sharp. Sharp starts the match off by absolutely blasting Mercado with forearms. Victor's then thrown all over the ring, and then outside of it, Sharp is on a rampage. A huge slap echoes, following a knife-edge chop on Mercado, but he eventually does manage to dodge Sharp and get a brief drop kick advantage before he's beaten to a pulp once again. Sharp then gets a victory after he blasts Mercado in the head with his forearm brace to secure the 1-2-3. With that, the week comes to an end, and the fallout from the Boogie Man Jam 84 in the NWA is in full effect. Paul Jones's army is taking a moment to regroup and reorganize, while the circus of Jimmy Valiant, Junkyard Dog, and Rufus R. Jones take aim at the Big Cat Ernie Ladd, Adrian Street, and Miss Linda. Over in the WWF, the World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan still remains missing in action. I know I've said this before, but it remains relevant no matter what day, what month, or even what year it is. If you're the champion, especially the top champion of your company, you should be making appearances every single week. Where is Hulk Hogan? Now, yes, I know he has been competing in untelevised matches and continues to sell out arenas as the WWF tours the road, but if you're simply watching on TV like I am, it's like the WWF does not even have a World Heavyweight Champion. Hopefully soon we'll be able to see on TV why Hulkamania is just so special. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and also like the video so you never miss a beat. Also share it with your friends and follow me on social media as I sometimes post things there. I'll see you next week. So long for now. And we also saw something else happen because I've completely forgotten my line. To start things off, Johnny Weaver as who? Don Kernodle. Brian Addias, a relatively newcomer to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area, takes on, in one of many of Tully Blanchard's scientific moves. Why did I gasp? It's Piper that remains calm and collected, and he even goes so far as to ease his Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to subscribe to